I think it's worth for a lot of people that won't know the timeline of events of how it's unfolded over the last just over 18 months, going back to January 2022. It's worth kind of clarifying the timeline of how things unfolded, really.
Yeah, one thing before I do, obviously, to add is obviously the victim in this is the complainant, who we can't name, and that's fairly well publicised who that is, but we can't name. But that's where the sympathy of this story goes towards, is that person, and I wish that person the very best going forwards. Timeline. So January the 30th, 2022, Greenwood was arrested after audios, photographs and videos appeared from the accuser on Instagram. These were soon deleted afterwards, but not after a lot of people around the world had obviously seen and heard stuff. United suspended Greenwood later that day. The next day, Nike suspended their relationship with Mason Greenwood. He was also removed from FIFA 22. The following day, which was February the 1st, Greenwood further arrested on suspicion of sexual assault and threats to kill. The following day, on the 2nd, Greenwood was released on bail pending further investigation. On the 7th, Nike officially ended their sponsorship with Greenwood. On October the 15th, Greenwood was arrested again after an alleged breach of his bail conditions. The Crown Prosecution Service announced it's charging Greenwood with attempted rape, engaging in control of coercive behaviour and assault occasioning actual bodily harm. 2 days later, on October the 17th, Greenwood appeared at court. He only spoke to confirm his name, address and date of birth. 2 days afterwards, on October the 19th, Greenwood was granted bail and released from custody. On November the 21st, Greenwood appeared at court again. The hearing lasted 10 minutes. A trial date was set for November 2023. On February the 2nd, 2023, the charges against Mason Greenwood were dropped after the Crown Prosecution Service said that key witnesses withdrew their involvement and new material came to light. The Crown Prosecution Service said there was no longer a realistic prospect of conviction. On May the 30th, Erik ten Hag, the Manchester United manager, said it is not his decision on if Mason Greenwood would return to the team. On August the 12th, Manchester United delayed their final decision on Mason Greenwood's future. On August the 17th, United's investigation concluded, but the final decision was not made. Chief Executive Richard Arnold was being left responsible for that final decision. On August the 21st, which I'm pretty sure was Monday, Suj, Manchester United released a statement confirming Mason Greenwood will be allowed to leave to continue his career elsewhere, citing a mutual agreement.
Yeah,
that's the short timeline.
A fair rundown of the timeline. I think there's a few things that really kind of stood out when we were looking at it. In October last year, at that point, they felt they had enough evidence to charge him.
Yes.
Which would have been a significant amount of evidence. We've talked about how the bar is set so high with evidence that you need in these type of cases. So at that point, they would have felt that they had enough evidence to convict him, and so hence would have found him guilty. The retraction in February, I can understand if a key witness has taken a step back. Other new information has come to light is particularly vague.
We can't even speculate on it, right?
Exactly.
No one knows.
That I'm kind of like, well, it does get me thinking what other new information could possibly come to light when you've got such a clear idea of what could have happened back in October. And in terms of Erik ten Hag saying that it's not his choice whether he comes back into the team, I think he probably meant squad, because it's still Erik ten Hag would pick the 11 that were going to go out onto the pitch. Sure. So
the reports
would have been a case of all Greenwood's in your squad, but Erik ten Hag could have still.
The reporting suggests that he wasn't against Greenwood returning to the squad.
Yeah, Erik ten Hag wasn't.
Yeah,
yeah. And then, like you said, Arnold was left with the final decision, and we got the statement on Monday.
Basically, I think it's worth covering quite a large chunk of primarily an article that Adam Crafton had kind of reposted and added to. Adam Crafton works for The Athletic and has done arguably one of the best bits of investigative journalism that I've probably ever seen, actually, and has been quite influential, I think, in terms of pushing a narrative back against Manchester United when Manchester United felt that they were in control. And Crafton has been helped by fellow journalists at The Athletic, which has pushed to get the real story of what's been going on behind the scenes at Manchester United into the public eye. As late as last Wednesday, which is 8 days ago from the time of this recording, United were still planning for the return of Mason Greenwood to come back into the squad. Last Thursday and Friday, according to Crafton, United had set time aside to explain to unhappy employees why Mason Greenwood would be returning to the first team squad. By Friday afternoon, the backlash from fans, supporters groups, even members of parliament speaking up, and charities that support female victims had forced essentially a rethink. United, following their own investigation, this investigation that began once the CPS had dropped the charges, believed that they, from their own investigation, they didn't have grounds to terminate Mason Greenwood's contract. I mean, that's quite important to get across from United's perspective. They didn't believe they had grounds just to essentially sack him.
Yep.
So they couldn't just go down that route. Statement on Monday obviously confirmed that United don't foresee any eventuality, including a return from a potential loan, if that's what happens, where Greenwood could play for Manchester United again. So United are prepared to help facilitate Greenwood in terms of helping him find a new club. It might be that it's a loan. There's a lot of kind of thought process at the moment from some people that United are trying to protect their asset, which I don't particularly agree with. But if he goes on loan to wherever and does well, and then Manchester United want to transfer him next summer, they're going to get more for the player than if they want to get now. It does feel slightly absurd to even be covering that sort of thing on this. But it might be that he goes out on loan and returns to United and goes somewhere else. But United have said they do not foresee any circumstances, no matter what, that Greenwood would play for United again. And to be honest, my opinion has always been that would have been an impossibility anyway.